Thank you so much for chatting with me today. I'm really excited to jump into this conversation about servant leadership. First thing I want to ask you is, who are you? You could, give us a little, explanation about who you are, introduce yourself, what have been some of your roles, and yeah, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. My name's Alison, and thanks for inviting me to join you, Tyler, today. That's awesome. And I have, I guess, quite a bit of experience in terms of my working life. In terms of my home life, I'm married and have 4 kids. And working life, always been involved in not-for-profits and working with charitable organizations. And I think my journey began as a university student and working with one-on-one with people with disabilities. And then that continued into a case management role, working with families who also had a son or daughter with a disability and helping them find resources. And that kind of morphed into working one-on-one with adults and developing support circles and looking at future goals and work and how to spend your day and where to live. And I really loved that. So I did a number of years working as a support circle facilitator with that population. And then, yeah, kids and family life, spent some time at home and then worked with an incredible organization called the YMCA, which people might be familiar with. And eventually that led me to my work with Live Different, which Tyler, you and I have in common. And I've spent 10 years volunteering and working with Live Different in a few different capacities as a board member, as a director with the organization. And really, I think the common thread that I've really enjoyed throughout my career is working with people, relationships, especially advocating for people who are vulnerable. So yeah, so I think that sort of led us to meeting through Live Different and to this conversation today.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it sounds like you have a lot of experience and have gained a really good perspective on what leadership is, and you definitely are the person I wanted to talk to when I was thinking about servant leadership. And so, first off, what do you think of when you hear that phrase, servant leadership?
Yeah, it's a funny phrase, really. I guess when I think of, because normally when we use the word servant, it can have a lot of different contexts, some positive, some negative. And so then when you think of servant leadership, it was a phrase I hadn't really heard of and broken down until working with with Live Different. And I think what I've learned over the years and what resonates with me is that idea of servant leadership, meaning just to serve others, thinking of others in terms of your leadership style. And that really resonates with me. And I think there are different ways to lead. And if you can lead with the perspective of serving others, I think there's a lot of benefits to that for everybody who's involved in working with you directly and indirectly.
Mhm. In your personal experience working with different leaders or being a leader in some of your roles, what are some sort of key traits or behaviors that you would, equate to being a servant leader?
Key traits, I think, kindness, having a kind and generous heart. I think when I think about leaders that have inspired me and have led with a servant leadership philosophy, it's always been the being able to relate on a level that is warm and generous, and seeing people who are willing to work with each other. And so, I guess it's a bit of a team perspective, right? You're there to support each other, and you're there to help each other in your roles. And I think you're wanting to bring out the best in everybody. I think leaders have things they want to accomplish and need to accomplish, but where the servant leadership part comes into it is bringing the relationships and the how you do that, rather than just the goal that you're working towards, but how does that happen, and that people matter and relationships matter in that process of working towards a goal.
No, I think that's huge, and like what you said about putting the people within your organization or the people that you're supporting and their needs before, some other ones like profit and those kind of things that aren't as important when it comes to relational and that kind of stuff is the people and how you put their needs first and how you treat them. And like you said, kindness is huge. I think that those are all really, really important things to remember. Do you think that there's a difference between like authentic leadership and servant leadership, and what would be some of the differences?
So I was thinking about this, and I don't know if there is theoretically like a definition of authentic leadership and sort of servant leadership. I'm very familiar with the principles of servant leadership, but in terms of authentic leadership, I guess, so having not studied kind of those, just my takeaways from that question is, I think authentic leadership is you're looking internally in terms of how you present yourself and being true to yourself in how you bring yourself to your role as a leader. Whereas I think servant leadership goes beyond that. You're caring for others and wanting others to be able to bring their authentic self into their roles and how you work together. So I guess I see servant leadership as a little bit broader in that sense, as you're worried about how other people are presenting themselves, or you're wanting to give the best opportunity to other people to be their true self. As well as you being authentic in who you are as a leader. So, who you are in and out of the workplace, they match, and you're not putting on like a leader hat that you take off in certain situations. So I think they are both of them are kind of like lifestyle kind of qualities, not just leader.
What do you think are some of the challenges of servant leadership? Or like, do you think that there's sometimes when it's not effective?
I'll speak to challenges sort of first. I think some of the challenges, especially as a leader, is sometimes you've got goals and deadlines to accomplish, and I think where servant leadership might be a challenge to that is looking at how you go about doing those things or accomplishing those things, and recognizing that sometimes sort of a logical kind of timeline or expectations may not match with your team and with I guess the people that you're working with, or who you're even trying to serve, right? But that's one of the challenges that I think is being able to keep things on track and make sure your goals match, well with what you're trying to accomplish or your mission, and then also works within that context of your team and how you care for your team as well. And if you can match your goals really well, if you've done that part well as an organization, then I think it's a lot easier and less challenging. But sometimes, I think there's pressures. There's a lot of pressures on performance sometimes, and it's hard sometimes to put a pause on things while maybe you sort out some other things relationship wise that are important to address. So
I think you're right. I think sometimes there's going to be moments when, if you have deadlines or in the moment, where it might just seem easier to just be a leader, make decisions, and and take that approach. But I think for longevity and in the long term, and for the support of your team and keeping those relationships and building on those relationships, I think, yeah, servant leadership will always be the more effective option for an organization or for a company or business or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it does take extra time to um, safeguard relationships and build that trust with people sometimes. And yeah, servant leadership, I think you're allowing that space for people to present sort of different ideas or different strategies or even different goals, and to be in a place where you can take that in, and maybe things get realigned because of that, or take a little bit longer because of that. And
Hmm.
yeah, but I do think in the long run, um, I've always found anyway, working with people, if if you have respectful relationships amongst everybody, like, yeah, the things you can accomplish is incredible. And that's something that having kind of a relation based approach to working with people really helps you build that team, and helps you build that trust amongst each other, and people will bend over backwards for each other if you allow for that and respect that and have it go both ways. Yeah.
Totally. Now, thinking a little bit more outside of an organization or outside of a structured, workplace, how can like we as individuals and young people today, growing up, be more servant leaders in their own communities?
Great question. And it is, like, I think we've talked a little bit about it being sort of a lifestyle, right? It's not sort of a hat you put on because you've been given a certain role or a position. And I think it's that trying to participate in a life in that kind of cooperative way, and looking at building relationships with people, and looking as to how you can be a positive impact on whatever it is you're doing. If we could all do that in our lives, you'll see it day to day, the impact of servant leadership. And I think that understanding the value you have in your community and your ability to contribute in different ways, and taking advantage of that. So that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a certain role or belong to a certain club or anything like that. You can do that in your day-to-day life, whether it's when you're in the store and being patient and respectful to other people, or you're trying to help your neighbor and seeing they're shoveling the driveway and going out and giving them a hand.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's like there's a video of Simon Sinek, and he basically talks about that anybody can be a leader, and it's not about this hierarchy of who's in power, but it's just about making the choice to take care of the people to the left and to the right of you. That's more
Yeah.
what his approach is, and that's what being a leader is, and that's why anybody could do it at any time. Um, doesn't matter where your rank or position is. It's just your choice. And I love that you said that servant leadership is a lifestyle. I think that's a really good point to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do, like, yeah, there's opportunities to show leadership all the time, right? And you're right. It's not just what comes with a specific role. So everybody has value and things they can bring to the table, and it can be really subtle too, right? It doesn't have to be loud and
Hmm.
announced. It can be really subtle in your day-to-day life as well. So you don't, yeah, people don't need to shy away from being in a leadership, or showing those qualities, because they don't want to be the person at the front of the room.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Allison, for talking with me today and sharing your insight and perspective, and yeah, talking with us.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It was fun to catch up and to talk about servant leadership. So I enjoyed it.
So here's the last question. I'm going to ask this from me. What do you mean, Simon, when you say that everyone is a leader?
Leadership has nothing to do with rank or title. I know many people who sit at the highest levels of organizations who are not leaders. We do as they tell us because they have authority over us, but we don't trust them and we wouldn't follow them. And yet I also know many people who sit at very low levels of organizations that have no formal rank and no formal authority, and yet they've made the choice to look after the person to the left of them and look after the person to the right of them, and we would trust them and follow them anywhere. Leadership is the responsibility to see those around us rise. It's the responsibility to take care of those around us. That's what leadership is. It's not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in our charge. And the only thing title and authority allow you to do is lead with greater scale. Every single one of us has the opportunity to be the leader we wish we had. Every single one of us.